Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Daincast. Today we've got a special game here between our friend Gator, a subscriber and friend of the channel, and another subscriber and friend of the channel, Countess, both clanmates of mine, playing, I believe this was a game in, I'm assuming this was in an SCV rush because Gator submitted this one, so we'll have to see what the draw is of this particular game. I asked Gator to submit some replays to me, and he looked through his big bag of tricks, and he found something interesting for us to watch, so... Gator's up here playing the orange Terran pieces, and in the bottom left we've got Countess playing the pink Protoss. And Countess going for a little bit of a non-standard wall here against Gator, going for actually a wall on the ramp, which is an interesting choice against Terran because obviously you're not really worried about anything running up your ramp, especially in the early game. Instead, you're really more worried about Reapers, but I'll have to ask Countess later on what her mentality is. Sometimes I just do this wall just out of habit. Sometimes you do it because you're playing against a random player. And Countess is scouting here after her gateway, so pretty standard scout timing for her. And Gator's also scouting with his 16th SCV here. So pretty standard. They high-five in the middle of the map. And we'll have to see what each player decides to do to put themselves into the mid-game here. So Countess is going to pop in here. Her probe's arriving too late to do any real damage to this SCV, making the barracks, and she does get a few little jabs off at this SCV, but this SCV has been pulled preemptively, specifically to delay this probe from doing anything annoying. Gator's going to pop into Countess's base and spot that there's no Nexus building, so there's going to be a little bit of a block action going on here, but the SCV is going to win this fight, guys. Spoiler alert, if there's no regeneration on the shields, the SCV is always going to win, so Countess needing to pull a second probe here. It's going to whittle away the health on this, but she does get her Nexus down at a reasonable time, and she's already started her Cybernetics core. Now she gets her second gas and her second pylon, so she's going to be in a good position here to start cranking out some units, maybe a little bit later of a Nexus than she'd want. Ideally, but Gator had to commit this SCV for a while there. So now Gator's going for the pretty standard opening with a Reaper and a Marine coming out, and Countess is not going to have any idea what his build is at this stage. So he's getting his second gas a little bit early here. I know Gator specifically told me not to get this gas that early, so it'll be interesting to see what he decides to do with it. He does get his factory down as fast as he possibly can. He's going to want to go into that higher tech units rather than going on for something like, say, a 3 racks push. I know that can be difficult to work on, especially if your opponent is ready for it, and I know Countess has played against that and is not scared of a 3 racks, even though Gator's 3 racks is pretty terrifying. So both of these players have played against each other many times, and they're going to know basically what to expect from one another. There's a little bit of mind games that are going to go on between these two. There's going to be a little bit of shenanigans there just because they've played each other so many times and they both know what the other is capable of. So this Adept coming in here and sniping an SCV and now getting a second SCV is going to be really annoying for Gator to deal with. This Adept even gets out and gets a third SCV, killing this factory and spotting that this is a factory that's producing something with no tech lab. So she'll be reasonably certain that this will be either a Widow Mine or a Hellion at least. It's not going to get canceled. And Gator hasn't started his starport yet. He does start a... is this a reactor on the barracks to make sure that he can get some more Marines going? And interestingly enough, no starport just yet, and there's no proxy starport anywhere on the map. So this is a pretty nice situation. Honestly, both players are probably not too unhappy about this. Gator's a little bit behind in the economy, as Countess has been completely unscathed here, going up to 29 workers to Gator's 23, but Gator does have the obviously double orbital command pumping out mules, so his income isn't going to be too far off of Countess's once those mules are up and running. So Gator popping in here with his Reaper, and Countess's Stalker's a little bit out of position here. Does get a single shot off on this Reaper, and he spots everything. He spots that there's a Robo. Countess has a Twilight researching, so it's probably going to be Blink. With the Robo there making observers. So this Reaper is dodging around and actually manages to escape without dying, which is nice control from Gator here, but that's the price you pay when you send your Adept out on the map and you only have the single Stalker. But Countess does close the distance with this Reaper and does manage to kill it, so a little bit of sloppy play from Gator there. Not that I can criticize, because that's pretty much what happens to my Reaper every single time. So now Countess's Blink is nearly finished and she's on 3 gateways. So she could look to be a little bit aggressive here if she deflects this drop and realizes where it's coming from. She might be able to do some counter damage here. She does manage to get her 3rd base up and running on time at a reasonable 440 timing. So she's going to have a nice aggressive economic opening here. Meanwhile, Gator's going to try and equalize this with this 4 Widow Mine drop. No drilling claws or anything from this drop, just going to be a Liberator follow-up. So this obviously is a scary push, especially when you've got these Marines moving out on the map and drawing your army out of position. So if these Marines can hit Countess's third base at the time where she wants to be getting the defense to the mine drop, it actually could be a scary situation for her. So I like this from Gator, just utilizing all of his resources to do damage rather than holding back. So Countess will spot this drop with this observer in a really nice position here, but it remains to be seen if she'll react to it in time. So she has managed to draw the stalkers back, but this might be a little bit of a bait because now these stalkers are all in the main and they're not going to be in a position to stop these Marines. So all this drop needs to do is pin these stalkers into the main, but the medevac does get sniped and Countess loses a single stalker here. Not blinking them away, wanting instead to defend this third base. So these Widow Mines are going to sit in this base and be uncontested for a while. So Countess realizing that the threat of losing her third is bigger than losing some mining time in the main here. So probably some nice decision making from Countess. Would have been nice to have a split there, but the Liberator coming into the natural with the probes being pulled is going to do absolute work. Gets 3 kills here, 4th kill. So nice siege position up for Gator. He's realizing that she's going to be pulling the stalkers back now, and so she's going to pull the he's going to pull the Liberator back. And look at all these probes, though. They're not mining, and neither are the probes in the main. And this Widow Mine has got 3 kills, and this one's got 2. So a lot of probe damage from Gator, going up to 14 probe kills. So he's not going to be too unhappy with this. This Liberator sieging up right on these stalkers. If Countess isn't paying attention, she's going to lose the stalkers, actually. I think this Liberator will out-damage these stalkers, and this is not what you want. You don't want to be bleeding off stalkers. They're your defensive tool in this matchup, and you need to keep them alive, especially if you've lost this many probes. So now Gator is sitting at a comfortable 50 SCVs. His third base with an orbital is just finishing. Meanwhile, Countess is sitting there on only 43. So definitely not the position you want to be in against 3 orbital command Terran. Meanwhile, Gator is also getting his additional infrastructure. He's getting 2 engineering bays, and so now that he's done the damage in the beginning here, he's looking to transition into a really strong mid game. So he's done the damage that he needs to do as a Terran against a Protoss. Meanwhile, Countess is sitting there losing mining time because she's got to send single probes in to deal with these, and there's another one there, so she does lose a stalker, only taking shield damage on the other 2, but the damage has been done here. The mid game for Gator is looking really, really strong, and as long as he can maintain a steady flow of macro, he should be in a really nice position. This is really hard to deal with as a Protoss player when you're getting attacked from 3 different fronts, because it's really hard not to take damage, right? And you get flustered and you get your units out of position, and one little mistake in your multitasking and everything is over. So don't feel too bad for Countess. She's still playing this very well, but Gator's on absolute fire with his multitasking, going for 3 attacks at once whenever he possibly can. And it is possible to win from here as a Protoss because your follow-up tech for Protoss in the mid game can be very strong. If you get a Colossus out, which is what Countess is going for, sometimes it's very difficult, no matter how many Marines you have or Widow Mines as a Terran player, to really close the distance with those Colossi. So there's always a chance. You shouldn't quit if this happens to you. You should stay in the game and see if you can do a follow-up push. But obviously, if the game goes longer, then too long. If Gator can keep this economic damage rolling, it's going to be really difficult for Countess. But she's chronoing workers out. She's gone up to 52 workers. She's got her third base going. She did manage to keep it alive, but she's on mostly stalkers and a single Colossi here. So not exactly a really dynamic and diverse army. Would like to see a few sentries in here. Not great observer coverage, but she does have an observer out in this position to spot this Liberator coming back. But and it is finally going to go down, but she pulls the stalker back without trading. So a little bit of mistake there from Countess. She probably could have got that without losing the stalker, but she's trying to play a little bit cautious here just to make sure. She realizes that this isn't actually threatening anything, so there's no reason to die on this particular hill. So Countess is, again, still in a defensive posture here. She does manage to get 2 Colossi up. No defenses or anything here. No gases at this third base. A little bit of missing probe production and floating chrono here. Meanwhile, this massive push coming out from Gator. It's got 3 medevacs and lots of mines, lots of Marauders and Marines. They all have 1/1 upgrades, I will believe. Nope, they're not going to have the upgrades just yet. So a little bit of early timing for Gator, but he realizes that there's really not a lot here, especially if Countess has got a bunch of stalkers in this position, and he stims on the Colossus and kills them, and that is not what you want as Countess in this position. You cannot lose those Colossi. They are absolutely your lifeline, and if all you're on is stalkers, does she even have any upgrades with this? I don't see a forge for her, so just naked stalkers and zealots without, I think she does have charge, which is a nice thing, but this Colossi is going to be really hard to deal with now that it comes out. So nice poke from Gator there, but like I said before, the Colossi for the Protoss are very, very strong in this mid-game situation until Terran has some kind of resources, some kind of Vikings to deal with it. You need to get a really, really good fight. You need to set it up really, really well in order to get the damage done. So now Countess is in a nicer position than she was. She's still behind 10 workers against a Terran who's on 3 CCs, but it could be worse for her. She could have lost all of her Colossi. She could have just lost the game there. So she's warping in lots of gateway units and looking to potentially do a follow-up push now that Thermal Lance is finishing up, and she'll be going for a Warp Prism. So now she's got the Warp Prism with her army, which puts her in a position to push. She's got lots of gateway units, but as soon as she pushes into a Terran that's got 1/1 upgrades, these gateway units are going to be absolutely useless, unfortunately. And with only the single Colossus, this push becomes a lot weaker. She does want to get some damage done here because she realizes how far behind she is. She doesn't have the upgrades. She doesn't have the dynamic tech that she would love. She doesn't have Storm on the way, anything like that. So she wants to just get the damage done and try and end the game here when she's got a strong timing where it's difficult to deal with. But there's so many Marauders here, even a Widow Mine going off on those Stalkers, and this is going to be a really difficult, if not impossible, fight for Countess to win here, especially fighting up a ramp against a Terran player. This Colossus does nothing to these Marauders. Countess is warping in Stalkers, but it's too much. It's just too much Terran. GG. Really well played from Gator. Just that, I think it was that mine drop with the Widow, with the Liberator and the Marines attacking the third base there. Really nice from Gator, showing that if you can attack in at least 3 spots, you can do damage to an infinitely powerful Protoss player. It's just really difficult to do so in the early game. So I like using those Marines. I like using those Marines there at the third base, drawing the Stalkers out of position. Can be really, really annoying, and it's really, really, really nicely played from Gator. So well played.